I think the most disciplined thing that you can do, the hardest thing that you can do is sit down with no inputs and a piece of paper and think about your life. To most people, becoming more disciplined or changing a habit feels like rolling a rock up a hill. If you use effortless discipline systems, you can turn habit change into rolling the rock down the hill. So the effortless discipline systems, 3 words.
All right, welcome back to the Better Human podcast. As usual, we have amazing guests, and some of you might have heard of this dude a little while ago. He was on the show a couple years ago, Craig Ballantyne, and we were chatting about just what it takes to be successful, and he was sharing his wisdom and his experiences. And Craig has got a new book, and if you haven't read the first couple, this is Craig's 4th book. Which is an achievement in itself. I'm always a fan and impressed and take my hat off to people that write books, because if you've ever written a book, you know how much time and effort and energy goes into it. Specifically,
It's the editing. It's the editing
part.
Oh,
exactly, right? Writing the book's the easy part. It's the editing part, which is difficult. So, Craig, welcome back to the show, man. I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Now we're on the easy part of the book, which is the promotion and talking about it. But yeah, it's writing a book, man. I almost wonder if it'll take years off your life.
Yeah, maybe.
I hope not, but
hopefully not. And maybe what you could do is you could give us a little bit of tips and tricks on sort of what it takes to write a successful book, and we'll get to that. But I want to learn a little bit more about this book and your thoughts around that. But before we get there, for the audience, give us a little bit of a lay of the land. Like, who are you? What are you doing? I know last time we did the podcast, you were in Mexico. I was living in Costa Rica. You're back in Vancouver now. So give the audience a little bit of an overview.
Yeah, so I'm originally from near Toronto. Grew up on a farm there. It's modest background. Wanted to be in the National Hockey League, couldn't. So I ended up being a personal trainer to Canada's richest people downtown Toronto. It was awesome. That's where I had my anxiety attacks that led to the Unstoppable book. Then I started an online business, and I did that in the fitness industry for a long time, help people transform their bodies and their lives. People wondered, how the heck do you get so much done, Craig? So I started writing about productivity, which was my first book, The Perfect Day Formula. I wrote about Unstoppable, the how to overcome anxiety is the second. The Perfect Week Formula is actually probably the most impactful in terms of time management productivity. And that was in 2019 or maybe even 2018. So it's been a long time since I wrote a book. And now we're on to the dark side of discipline, which I started writing in January of 2024 when we were still in Mexico. So we moved down to Mexico to have our 3 kids. So they have 2 passports, and the 3-year-old is bilingual. She can switch back and forth between English and Spanish. It's fantastic. We only have Spanish speaking nannies. So we did there in Mexico, obviously. But even when we're back here in Vancouver, Vancouver has a very large Spanish-speaking population. There's a lot of people on student visas, and they work with our kids and they teach them all day long, and it's pretty cool.
Awesome. And it'll be easy for them to pick up French afterwards. So, French,
likewise.
Spanish, English. Yeah, my kids are also fully bilingual now, and it's quite amazing. I'm still barely speaking English, but my kids are bilingual. And I'm thinking, the next would be French, because there's an easy transition to then Italian. Yep. And, I got a friend, he speaks 8 languages.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Incredible. And he once said to me, he said, how important it is to be able to speak to someone in their native language, and how much credibility and connection and rapport you immediately build because of a common language. And I've always, envious is the wrong word. I've always been inspired, and hats off to him. Like, it's amazing. I once met a guy many years ago, when I was working in Club Med at a very young age of 20.
Oh, nice.
This dude rolled in. He spoke 16 languages and something like 6 or 7 dialects. And he would play this game where, and I've got a weird accent. I'm originally from South Africa.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, grew up in Canada, transplanted into the US a little bit, and back to Canada now in Costa Rica. So they called me over and they're like, Greg, you speak to him, because there's no way this guy's going to get your accent, right? Anyway, this guy picked it up. He was like, you're from South Africa, Johannesburg, you've been living in Canada. And I was like, who told this guy, right? But it was a crazy moment. Yeah. So very cool, man. So let's talk. What inspired this book? I mean, I think once you get into a rhythm of writing books, you're as I just said, you're in a rhythm, but each book kind of comes on its own sort of moment, or there's an inspiration, or there's a thing that sort of kickstarts and triggers that. What was that for this book?
Yeah, for this one, it was watching some friends have their lives kind of implode from doing good things. So it's really counterintuitive that doing good things could hurt your life. But as the old saying goes, two wrongs don't make a right. Well, 20 good things don't always make a great thing. In fact, they can make a very bad thing. And what I mean by that is if you use Instagram or social media of any kind, you open it up and you see like, oh, today I see some guy cold plunging and today I see some guy exercising twice a day. And oh, there's the book a week club. And my goodness, I'm not doing any of these things. I better go do these things. But if doing those things take you away from what really matter in your life, and you don't focus on what really matters, and you actually neglect what really matters, whether it's your family or your business or improving your sales skills or your leadership skills, you are actually doing harm by doing something quote unquote good. And that's what I saw. And I still see it happen all the time. And we came up with this little phrase in the book that people are wild horses putting a level 10 effort into level 1 problems and a level 1 effort into their level 1 or level 10 problems. And this mismatch where they're putting great energy into things that are nice, but don't really change their lives and neglecting what really matters in their life. It's heartbreaking to see. And it's so obvious to watch it with outside eyes, but people in the moment don't realize it. And so one of my friends lost his marriage. His wife walked out on him with the kids because he was spending all his time doing these challenges and half the other half of his time running his business with his phone in his face.
Yeah. I was going to ask you sort of, so for the friends, like what was that? So it sounds like your friend got caught up in the world of, call it personal development, which is if you're running on all these challenges and signing up for all these things and you're cold plunging every day and you're working out 9 times a day. I once had a conversation with a previous guest and we called them personal development junkies, which people get caught up in the exercise of going through the challenge or going through the course or listening to the podcast or reading the book, but that's all they do, right? They go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, because they think that's the answer. And I think what you're saying here, and I love what you're saying, which is, really being able to decipher, right? If I was to paraphrase, where you should be putting your energy and what's going to net the best results. And there is no sort of shortcut and easy answer to this, that if you sign up for the challenge or you listen to the podcast, that's going to be the answer.
Yeah. So we say in the book that the ultimate definition of discipline is putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problems and everything else is entertainment. And that's really what it is. I like a good cold plunge. Feels great. You get all, you're kind of fired up after, but it's not the thing that's going to solve the problems in your life. So if you have a 15-year-old marriage and, the marriage is kind of cold right now because you really just feel like roommates, 2 ships passing in the night because you're really Uber drivers for your, 14-year-old kids that have soccer and hockey and all these other things. And you just go and start a cold plunge program or some other challenge, but you don't sit down with your wife and have the difficult conversation. Yeah, you're really, it's just a perverse form of procrastination. And so it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a personal development junkie, although that is a person and definitely a bad thing. But it is people that are doing things to get recognition and reward from strangers on the internet who they will never meet and never have met. And they are sacrificing interaction with their kids and their family to get dopamine hits from strangers. And, the cold plunge one I keep on using because it is so visual, right? It's so visual and yeah, it looks hard. And, there's some people out there with, I found this one guy, he's cold plunging with these beautiful girls in LA and he goes under the water. His video has like 200 million views.
I've seen it.
And it's so hilarious because the girls are like barely up to their waist in the cold plunge. And I joke and I say the cold plunge has become the soy latte of personal development because anybody can do it. It's not, people think that they're tough when they're doing it, I think. And like, I'm going to show these people on the internet how tough I am going into a cold plunge. It's no longer tough. Anybody can do it. And so chasing the likes and the shares and the comments from doing those things gets people way off track.
Yeah, it's become like an addiction for people, right? Mm-hmm. There's that dopamine hit that you're talking about. It's amazing to me in how people lose perspective, right?
It is.
Where they get, I love what you said, focusing on level 1 things right? Instead of focusing on the level 10 stuff, right? And it's hard to decipher. I think people need to take note, and there's an opportunity for people to sort of sit back from a reflection standpoint and think, hey, what are the important things in life? What are my priorities? Where do I need to put my focus? Truthfully, I found this with business last year. I found that my focus wasn't on business as much as it's been in the past, right? Um, hired a head of sales. I was like, all right, you fucking deal with the sales, right? That's your job. And, I'll just float around. And you saw it in the revenue, right? It wasn't yes, there were budgets were a little tighter last year and people took longer to make decisions in the training world. But, when I reflected upon the year, I said, what's the one thing that's changed? What's the one thing that's shifted in the business? And it's me. It's my activity, my focus, my discipline, my schedule. And that was something that I rolled into this year to say, you know what, we're gonna make sure that, like, from a business standpoint, this is really on the top in the top three.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you focus on expands, as some people say, but what you really focus on is what you're going to get. And you said magic word to me, which is reflection. And so all of this stuff, people might be thinking now, well, how do I know what is right for me? And I think the most disciplined thing that you can do, the hardest work that you can do, like people are always posting that they're doing hard things like a cold shower or whatever. Like, okay, the hardest thing that you can do is sit down with no inputs and a piece of paper and think about your life. Most people don't do that because it's hard, it's boring, but it is the most important thing that you can do. And so we teach 3 phases in the book. First of all, figure out your big why. What's your mission purpose that's driving you in life to do what you do? And in most cases, for the type of people, if they're anything like me, it's going to be something around family. I'm doing this. Everything is for my family in my life. Everything, the way I structure my schedule, the house that I got them in, the neighborhood that I got them here in Vancouver, everything is for my family. And then the next thing we do is we get people to create a clear vision for their life. I want you to tell me exactly what your life is going to look like in 3 years from now so that I can, as you explain it to me, I can watch the movie of your life. Give me the movie script and I'll watch the movie. Where you're living, exactly what cars are in the driveway, what the house looks like, what your marriage is like, what your kids are doing. What you and I were chatting about your kids and stuff before, and I can already see the future for your family based on what you told me, provided you keep on the straight line of success. And then the third thing after the vision, so big why, vision, give me a specific definition of success for the short term. And this is where people kind of struggle because they come to me and say, Craig, I want to get rich. I want to lose weight. I want to be more disciplined. And I say to them, those things don't mean anything to me. Because if 1,000 people said the same phrases to me, 1,000 people have 1,000 different ideas in their head of what more disciplined is. So,
different perceptions.
Exactly. One man thinks, I just got to stop using my phone so much. Another man thinks I got to stop pornography. Another man thinks I drink too much. Another man thinks I got to learn how to go to the gym and be more disciplined. But I need that specific definition of success. And now with that information, we can chart your path and you have your own unique finish line. And now you run your own race. And that's what it's really about. Even if running your own race in life to your successful finish line means running in the opposite direction of the crowd, you need to run your own race. And when I meet somebody who's comfortable in their own skin and is running their own race, I know that they are a successful, disciplined person.
Yeah, I love that. Purpose, vision, and success, right? Measured, which gives a good little framework, or gives a good framework for that. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, what came to mind was golf, right? At the end of the day, if you play golf, anyone that plays golf, this, you really play against yourself, right? And you're not competing against others. Yes, if you're a pro golfer, different story, right? But you're going out. You're really playing against yourself, and it's your own game and your own individual exercise there. So we've got the framework for discipline. How do you define discipline? Like, if someone says, what is discipline? Like, how do you define that?
Yeah, we just go right to that definition, which is needs a little exercise. So everybody listening, you have a level 10 problem in your life. You might even have a couple. And the level 10 problems in your life might be around your marriage. It might be around your health. It might be specific around financials. In your business last year, you identified the level 10 problem was the sales thing. And you identified the path to fix it. So simply identify your level 10 problem in life. And then if you have 2 or 3 of them, write down what level of effort are you putting into your level 10 problem. And so, for example, You might have, I have the marriage thing. It's like, well, I am doing weekly date night. You're just not anything else, but we're missing it once in a while. So I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Okay. That can be up to a 10 out of 10. And once you put a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem, then you are disciplined. But even if you're just putting a level 9 effort into your level 10 problem, you aren't as disciplined as you can be. And I'll give you a quick little story about how I first thought of this. Was years ago, my friend Bedros Keuilian had an event called Fitness Business Summit, and I spoke at it for 10 years. And every single year, the same people would be in the audience. And I'd look out and I'd see, there's Alex. And, this year, Alex has 8% body fat, because they're all personal trainers. They're all in good shape. He has 8% body fat, but he has $8 in his bank account. And we taught them sales and marketing all weekend long. But of course, on the breaks, they would go out and talk to other personal trainers about workouts and nutrition. And then next year, they'd come back. They wouldn't do anything with the sales and marketing. They'd do everything with the workouts and nutrition. And Alex would be sitting in the audience and he'd be 7% body fat, but have $7 in his bank account because he put a level 1 effort into sales and marketing, which was his level 10 problem. So he's still broke. And he put a level 10 effort into his level 1 problem, which was getting even more ripped. And sure, he's 1% body fat less, but that's not a problem.
Right.
The problem is you're broke.
Right. So why do you think this happens? Because it's quite common for people to not be disciplined, to not put in the effort, sometimes even to recognize. But what do you think? Why do you think this happens to people?
Sure. So there's 2 things. So the first one is that you get more reward faster when you start new things, right? Or if you continue to do something that you're good at. So the workout guys, they were like, oh, I totally understand this other person's workout and nutrition. That's easy for me to implement at home. And they go home and they have a good workout. And they're like, yes, this is the workout program for me. And so they focus all on that. But the sales and marketing, like you don't just go to a weekend seminar and go home and start closing 100% on Monday morning. You go home and it's clunky and it takes like a week until you see results. But most people don't even stick to it for a week. So and the harder and bigger your level 10 problem, like that marriage, if that person was in the marriage for 15, 20 years and they're really just Uber drivers for their kids and not really in a romantic relationship anymore with their partner and spouse, they might not even sleep in the same room. To turn that ship around, how long does it take? 90 days, 180 days before you even think like, okay, I've gone from like a 3 out of 10 marriage to a 4 out of 10 marriage. It's hard to stick with it. And so that's the first reason why. It's, we say in the book that it's a whole lot more rewarding to put a level 5 effort into a level 2 problem, which means starting the new diet, starting the YouTube channel when, the business is failing because, our leadership is horrible. But if I just go out and start a YouTube channel, it's easier. Anybody can do that in the afternoon. The second thing is that when you want to change something, to most people, becoming more disciplined or changing a habit feels like rolling a rock up a hill. It's going to be so much work. It's very intimidating. But another thing that I talk about in the book is if you use effortless discipline systems, and there's 3 main ones, you can turn habit change into rolling the rock down the hill. And if you roll a rock down the hill, or if like us Canadians do, we roll a snowball down the hill, you know what happens? It gets easier and easier and easier as you go. So the effortless discipline systems, 3 words: elimination, preparation, connection.
Okay, break that down for us.
So elimination, we'll use the phone because the phone, we have a great example in the book, and the phone is a problem for most people. So how do we eliminate the phone? Well, I don't use it, but my co-author, Daniel Woodrum, is a big fan of this thing called the Opal app, OPAL. It's one of the most popular apps in terms of website blocking and, app blocking. 4 million users, really high rating. And so the Opal app allows you to block, take your phone and block access for a certain amount of time. So from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., when Daniel does his regular work block, his most important work block, because he also has 3 young kids, and that's his work time. He doesn't allow himself to go on social media. He can't get text messages. He can't get phone calls, nothing. So, he's eliminated the distraction. And then from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., when he's with his family, he does the same thing. because what happened years ago was his daughter was sitting on the couch with him and he couldn't resist the phone. He had to check the messages, even though it was playtime with his daughter. And his daughter said, "Hey, Dad, can you stop the phone and pay attention to me?" And, hit him in the heart. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not doing that again." So he's now eliminated it. If you binge eat potato chips, get them out of the house, eliminate it from the house. We've had all types of extreme examples. So we have one client whose assistant changes his Gmail password every morning at 9 a.m. and then gives it back to him at 5 p.m., a different password. We've had people do the same with Netflix. So, on Sunday night, the assistant comes in, changes the Netflix password, and gives it back to them Friday night. Elimination.
Smart. Super smart, super easy, right? And practical.
Right.
It's amazing that, people have such a hard time doing that, but you're right. I mean, elimination is sort of the core piece for all of us.
It's the first step, because right now, most people, if you have a bad habit, and the reason why I wrote this book, as Naval Ravikant says, in order to write the book, you must first live the book. I live the book. Everything: binge eating, binge drinking, binge watching, binge video gaming, everything. I never smoked cigarettes or, drugs, but aside from that, I did all the bad habits. And so I figured out how to beat them through the systems. And, binge drinking was probably the worst one. And it's not only eliminating the alcohol from the house, it's eliminating yourself from the toxic circles. So even if you have a gossiping problem or a fantasy football problem, just don't spend as much time, or eliminate the time you spend with those people who are obsessed with that stuff and who will drag you down. And so that elimination extends to that as well. Otherwise, you get in this doom loop of this habit where if you do something, you actually ingrain it into your system. You may have heard the phrase, I'm sure somebody's used it around you. You might have used it yourself, where you said, "I just got to get it out of my system." You don't get something out of your system by doing it. You ingrain it deeper into your system. So, the guy who says, "I just got to go to Vegas one more time and get drunk and party with my buddies and get it out of my system," the classic bachelor party, that actually makes him more likely to do it again. It doesn't get it out of your system. It ingrains it in your system. So every time you do the thing, as James Clear says in Atomic Habits, every action you take is a vote for the person you're going to become. So you unfortunately, if you don't want to do it anymore, you can't do it one more time and just say, for fun. No, that'll make it worse.
And the truth to habit building is, we know it takes 66 days. 66 days to sort of develop that habit or even break the habit. And technically it is on day 67 that you have the new habit formed, or you have that habit broken, right? So back to the consistency, people need to stick this out, right?
Yeah. And so with elimination and preparation, the first two of the systems, the elimination is making the bad habit harder to do. You need to put more friction between you and the bad habit. And that means, when I'm writing a book, the phone is a distraction to me, not as bad as it is to some people, but I take my phone and I put it in airplane mode. I turn it off. I take it out of the room I'm working in and I put it in a desk drawer. Those are 4 levels of friction for me to turn my phone on and get distracted by it. And there are some times when I run into some writer's block that I'll get to like turning it on and then have to slap my hand and get back in the other room. But thank goodness there was 4 levels that protected me from it. So elimination, then the preparation. If you're in a doom loop of doing this thing, whether it's Netflix at night or drinking at night or whatever it is, you need a circuit breaker from the doom loop. Otherwise, you just keep on going through the cycle and it feeds more bad behavior. And the circuit breaker is generally better planning and preparation. So if you go home at night and it's been a tough day at work. The leadership stuff was tough. Oh my goodness. And, there was conflict and you're wiped out. I mean, you got stuck in traffic, especially if you get some of the North American traffic, like down in Toronto. And my goodness, you get home and you have no discipline or willpower left because it's a depletable resource. And so it's like Groundhog Day. You sit down in front of the couch, you grab some junky food and Netflix goes on. And the next thing you know, you've blanked out and it's 90 minutes later. You got to stop that. And how do you do that? It's through planning and preparation, whether giving your Netflix password to somebody else or planning to do something with someone, making an exercise date or some other type of date with a person. So it interrupts the doom loop of you like sitting down in front of Netflix. And maybe you can order some healthy meals to your house so that instead of grabbing the junk, you have something planned and prepared to eat that's better instead. And now you don't do the bad habit of watching TV, and away you go. So that planning and preparation is key. It really is. If you've tried in the past to change a habit or to lose weight or to start a fitness program, the reason why you haven't succeeded is because your planning and preparation hasn't been as good as it needed to be. Yeah. But once you fix that, it's great. So that's the second phase. And then the third effortless discipline system is connection. So connection is accountability. It's social support. It's the people you spend your time with. Because this one is almost overpowering of the others. Because if you spend your time, and this is Harvard research proven, there was a guy with a very long Greek last name, and he studied social interactions. And he found that if your 5 best friends are overweight, you're going to be overweight.
Yep.
If they're cigarette smokers, you're going to be cigarette smoker.
Yep.
And it's interesting is that they even found that if your kid's friend's parent was strict, that your child has a lesser chance of consuming alcohol. That's how powerful social stuff is.
Yeah.
So it's not your kid's friend, but it's their parent. If they were strict, then your child is protected from drinking alcohol. It's fascinating, the human interaction. And so we recommend that you get accountability, whether sharing your goals publicly or to a mentor that you deeply do not want to disappoint. Because when you have accountability to people that you don't want to disappoint and you don't want to be a hypocrite, you will move mountains in your life to make the change.
1,000%. I mean, this is as simple as people want to start working out and, by themselves, they're like, I'll go tomorrow. But you get a trainer, next thing you know, you're showing up, or even better, you got a buddy, right? And, it's funny because I heard this before, which is people are willing to disappoint themselves, but they're not willing to disappoint their friends. Or
that's exactly it.
That accountability part. Maybe it was you that said that on the last podcast.
I don't know, but I've been saying this quite a bit. Like the easiest person to disappoint is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you keep your goals hidden and I just want to stop watching Netflix, and you tell nobody else, I can disappoint myself.
Right,
no big deal.
Right. Totally agree. And you were talking about the parents and your social circles. I just had this conversation with my wife yesterday, which was my daughter went out to this little birthday party on the weekend, and I don't love the parents, and the kids aren't. It's not that they're misbehaved. They're not as good when it comes down to social responsibility, when it comes down to, being good influences and stuff. And I said to my wife, with respect, I'm not going to tell my daughter she can't be friends with these people, but she's not going to go to their house. My daughter's not going over to hang out in that environment, right? Their kids can come over to us, right? We're the strict parents, by the way. Maybe I'm the strict parent.
Good.
And more than welcome, they could come over to us and we could socialize and we could sort of just be on top of things. But I don't want to send my daughter out into the world and have her being exposed and influenced to all these people that, very bluntly, the parents are a little bit of a concern, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the entire topic of a book by a very well-known Canadian, actually, Gabor Mate. Have you ever heard his name?
Yeah.
So his book, Hold On to Your Kids.
Yeah.
Hold On to Your Kids is essentially that if you release them to the wild, the social circles, it generally doesn't end up well.
Correct. I didn't know he was Canadian, actually.
Yeah, he's actually from Vancouver here.
Wow, look at that. Yeah. Good old Canadians.
I don't know him personally, but I've seen his work, and my friend Joe Polish is always referencing him.
Yeah, the Genius Network.
Yeah, and so one of the most recommended books, I'll ask once in a while on my social media, the best parenting book, and that one comes up very often. Now, obviously, it's for when kids get to your child's age, but 3-year-olds, you kind of got to control them. But absolutely, you're making the right decision.
So for kids under 2, and I know you're kind of still in this and you're on your 3rd, so you might not need it, but there's a book called The Baby Book, which my ex-partner, who's a psychologist, gave it to me. It's written by 3 PhDs, and it's a tech manual for kids under 2. and it tells you everything. It's not prescriptive to say this is what you should do, but if you've got questions, sleeping, feeding, the language of the baby, what you should be doing at these different stages, it's like you go to the index, you're like, this is what's happening right now. You flip to that chapter and it says, all right, here's what you got to know. Here's options around it. Here's sort of best practices around it. It's a brilliant book. I've actually given to a few people. It's called
And what is it called again?
It's called The Baby Book.
The Baby Book. Very easy.
And there's another version which is, I think, kids over from 2 to 4, right? But,
okay, it's like the toddler book.
Yeah, the toddler book, exactly. Yeah, so very cool.
Great.
So I wanted to ask you. So do you see discipline, the lack of discipline, and people having challenges? Is this more with males, females, equal? I mean, in your own work, who do you see sort of popping up with these types of disciplinarian challenges?
I don't think it generally discriminates gender-wise, although you'll see it manifest maybe a little bit different. I find that women will procrastinate on doing something because of fear of criticism, whereas the men will procrastinate on doing something, and both of them do other things as a result of this procrastination. But men will do it because they want the recognition and reward of, like being the hero of getting into the ice bath, while the woman will do it because she doesn't want to get criticized for the thing that she really wants to do.
Interesting.
But everybody's avoiding the real work, and possibly for different reasons. That's a big generalization, but that's what I would say is the major difference between genders.
And what about generationally? Like, I mean, I think about my grandparents. I don't think they had an issue with discipline, right? I don't know.
Well, they just have fewer distractions.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe you're right.
It really is fewer distractions. And that said, I joke in the book. I say, how on earth did anybody in the 1880s get anything done when nobody knew about cold plunging or biohacking? Like, they just went to work, and they went to work because if they didn't work, they didn't eat. And now we invent problems. I think that really is a true issue with the world today, is that we simply invent problems because we don't have any. We don't have a problem with access to food. We don't have a problem with access to climate-controlled living. And so we go out and invent problems that don't exist. We say we all have anxiety. Well, you wouldn't have anxiety if you had a real problem. Like if you had to worry about survival, you wouldn't be anxious. So I think what most people need to do is to be grateful for the fact that they don't have real problems, and go out and solve other people's real problems. And you'll actually be more inspired. You'll have more purpose, and you'll look at your work differently. My friend Bedros, who I mentioned before, he talks about how he's no longer an entrepreneur. He's an agent of change. And I talked a lot to my mastermind group about this different. I said, how does your perspective around work differ when you're an agent of change versus a business owner? A business owner starts a business to make a bunch of money and eventually sell their business. An agent of change starts a business so that they can go and change other people's lives because they already have everything. I've got everything I need. I'm not doing this work because I'm doing it for money. I'm doing this work because I'm doing it because I need to help other people who need help. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that at the end of the day, we're trying to eliminate. The book is trying to get people to eliminate the idea and concept of discipline, because we go beyond, there's discipline, then there's systems underneath the discipline, but it's changing the identity. I'm not a person who needs discipline. I'm a person who does what's important, and I do what matters, and I don't chase other things. And then I set really high standards for myself so that I go out and perform, and that's who I am, and that's what I'm about. And I don't need discipline. I get up on time. I go to bed on time. I wake up early because I'm so excited about the things I'm going to go and do and the people I'm going to help. I don't need discipline. Discipline's not even in my vocabulary anymore.
Right. That's why you wrote a book on it.
Yeah. We want people to evolve beyond it, truly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I like the way you describe that, which is, it's an identity exercise as well. I love what you talked about with problems, which is we don't have problems in today's world. So we either make them up or we manifest them, right? So it's easy for us to, in
Yeah,
quotations, be,
look what people argue about on the internet. Like
oh,
these are not problems.
yeah,
Like
yeah. I'm in the
get back
midst
to
of
work.
facilitating and mediating this HO. I live in a development, and there's an HOA, and there's a bunch of people that are upset with the administration. Now, without getting into too many details, to run this place, this development, it's like a city. So people have no idea what goes into it, right? But the grass is a little brown over here. So people jump on the Facebook group and they'll just go on and on and on. Anyway, of course, me being me, I'm like, let me get involved and help facilitate this whole conversation and broker peace within the community. And it's been an exercise about 8 months, but I'm finally sort of getting people to the end. But man, these
Good.
people, like I want to say to them, like, you guys have too much time on your hands.
That's
Like
exactly it.
you're just creating problems for the sake of being problems. And we've just started this committee, and I've sent out the purpose of it, which is we're gonna be one of the line items is we're here to create solutions and help the community with those solutions. And one person called me back and they said, I've got an issue with this part. I said, what is it? What's the issue? They were like, well, I don't think we should be part of the solution. I'm like, well, then what do you want to do? Like, if you want to be part of the problem, that's one thing. If you want to be part of the solution, it's something else. But you got to pick a path. You can't suck and blow, right? You got to pick one versus the other. Interested to know about kids. So you've got 3 kids. What advice do you have for parents, or how are you raising kids to have strong discipline and consistency?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. And so just on the kid side of thing, one of the greatest pieces of advice of parenting that I was ever given was you could be tired and your wife can be tired, but you can't be tired at the same time. So us raising kids, it's really been about planning and preparation and communication. There's a lot of discipline required to raise kids in terms of you need to be organized. You need to, you're responsible for another human being. And so excess communication in advance of figuring out what's going to happen, who's going to, what the kids are eating, all that sort of stuff. We keep our kids on a great routine, bed at the same time, up at the same time. The older 2 are pretty good sleepers now, 12 hours a night. And it's because we provide them, the structure. And so we do have help. So we have 2 nannies that, one starts at 7 a.m, one starts at 8 a.m. They're both Spanish speaking. So our kids are getting Spanish all day long. They get English from mom and dad. They can switch back and forth. And, we have certain activities. My wife just got home from dance with one of them. So we're trying to get them into a whole bunch of activities. We're not overly strict with food, but we make sure they eat real food. We're trying to get them to try new foods all the time. We have plenty of cookbooks. So, they're cooking with us.
So we were if we lived in Canada, we would homeschool our kids. Or I should say, if we weren't living in Costa Rica, we would be homeschooling our kids. And my wife's looked into this a lot, which, it's not so much about the prescribed curriculum, but it is about the community, right? So finding other people that are also homeschooling their kids, and you can start to share activities and you can start to do the group work. There's a very cool school. It's out of Texas and Florida right now, which is they do the first 20% is academic learning through AI. They don't have teachers. They have coaches there. And the first couple hours of the day, the kids go in and it's all AI learning. And that's their academics: math, English, science, geography, history. The rest of it, 80%, and you're talking a lot about the 80-20 rule, 80% is done on life skills, financial acumen, running a business, entrepreneurship, volunteering, nature, whatever. And what they've discovered is these kids are outperforming traditional academic learning. So what they've taken is even better, and the maturing and the development and the growth and stuff. So it's very exciting. And, I also love what you were talking about, which is structure. I think, even we do live in this world of gentle parenting, and it is a little more sort of, there's a new age parent there. But one of the psychology or the psychology behind this is the more structure your kid has in these formative years, the more balanced they're going to be. Because a kid needs to, the same way we follow a schedule, right? We need to know what we're looking for. You talk about planning and prepping, right? Because to leave it up to our own will isn't sometimes motivating enough, or we don't have enough discipline. So the same way we look forward to things, kids that have that structure, they have naps at certain times, they eat at a certain time, they have certain activities at a certain time, become more balanced because they know what to expect. It's not this mystical sort of, we'll figure out sort of what happens during the day. So I totally agree with your piece and structure. All right. Love to pick your brain about writing a book for the audience. Because I know some people are like, I want to write a book. So if you were to give someone advice or coaching on writing a book, what would that be?
Yeah. So the most important thing in selling a book is really the title and the cover. It's kind of like a YouTube video. If you want a YouTube video to get lots of views, it's the cover slide and the title. Now, in terms of actually writing the book, I learned this from Ryan Holiday, that the outline is the most important thing. And so I don't know his exact way of outlining a book, but the way that I've simplified it is take your book, put it into 3 different parts. So our Dark Side of Discipline book is stop chasing, suffer less, achieve more. And so we break it down. The first part is about, you're chasing other person's definition of discipline. I'm going to show you how to suffer less and achieve discipline in the second part. And then in the third part, we're going to tie it all together and help you achieve more. So you got your 3 parts this is for like the nonfiction, personal development, even business books. Done that way. Then opening up with a really cool story. So right now I'm reading a great book called From Barista to Billionaire by a guy named Andrew Wilkinson. They start with an amazing, we're going to see Charlie Munger and we became billionaires today. Really great story. I was just got a message from my friend who knows Andrew, and Andrew is a billionaire, and he's basically got like a tech version of Berkshire Hathaway. And he lives on Vancouver Island in the city of Victoria, of all places. But he used 2 ghostwriters and they cost him a fortune, he said. But the book is like an amazing read from start to finish. Anyways, he starts with that great story. And I did the same in The Dark Side of Discipline. I start with a story to draw the reader in. And it's same when I'm doing a presentation on stage. I want to start with an emotionally charged story to draw the reader or to draw the audience in and get them kind of on the edge of their seat.
My mother wrote a book early days in her career. She was part of the business, and she was early days a speech pathologist and did a lot of presentation skills training and voice and stuff. And in her book, she talks about spoken word versus talking, right? And it's 2 different things, right? What you write versus what you end up sort of saying. Cool. Craig, this has been amazing. Pleasure having you back, brother. Really excited to pick up your book and go through it. It'll definitely, I will read past the first chapter.
I appreciate it.
And it'll definitely get on the bookshelf. And I think you're right, man. All these books come at the right timing. I think people need simple guidance on how to execute well in life, and discipline is one of them. And we hear words like discipline and resilience and all this stuff, but we don't really know what it is. And I think what you did today was you broke it down, which was like, here's the structure for it, here's the steps for it, here's why you're doing these things, which I think for the audience, hopefully you've picked up that as well and made a lot of notes. And for the rest of the audience, go and pick up the book. On that note, Craig, I'm getting tongue twisted as we're talking. Right? Let's drop some of your links. Drop the information. Where can people find the book? Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah. So Amazon for the books. There's going to be hard copy, paperback, ebook, and audiobooks very soon. And then darksideofdiscipline.com. If they want to go there, we got extra bonuses and videos and worksheets to go with it as well on that page, darksideofdiscipline.com. And then anybody has any questions at all, hit me up on Instagram at @realCraigBallantyne.
And for the audience, we're going to put that all in the show notes. But Craig Ballantyne, Dark Side of Discipline. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I appreciate our time. To the audience, if you like today's episode, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share, go and pick up a copy of the book, and go and follow Craig on Instagram. He posts some amazing stuff. Stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you on the next round.